When I heard my mother-in-law whisper, "She doesn't deserve him," I swear my stomach dropped right through the floor. That's how my wedding started. Not with laughter or love, but with a whisper that hit harder than a slap. The church smelled like roses and candle wax. I could feel the lace of my dress scratching against my shoulders, my dad's hand shaking just slightly as he held my arm. Mom was already tearing up, the good kind, I thought, until I caught the way her smile froze when she saw his family sitting up front. They weren't smiling. Not even pretending. Just sitting there stiff, like they were at a funeral. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe they were just nervous. Maybe that's how they showed emotion, cold and quiet. After all, this was supposed to be the best day of my life. My name's Emily Carter, and if there's one thing I've learned since that day, it's that people can destroy you with a smile and a whisper. A year before all this, life felt perfect, simple, safe. I worked as a high school counselor, the kind who always kept granola bars in her desk and handed out tough love with a soft voice. I believed that if you worked hard and stayed kind, the universe would treat you right. Then I met Jake Thompson. He wasn't flashy, just this easygoing, grounded guy who made everyone around him feel seen. We met at a community fundraiser. He was volunteering with his company, helping out at the robotics table, and we started talking about music and the best diner coffee in town. It was effortless. Within months, it was like we'd always known each other. My parents loved him instantly. My dad called him a solid man. Mom kept saying, "He's the kind of man who'll keep you safe." I thought I'd hit the jackpot, the kind of love people write songs about. Then came his family. The first time I met Evelyn and Richard Thompson, I realized not everyone was thrilled about their golden boy settling down. Evelyn was the kind of woman who smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Every compliment came with a little poison at the end. Richard barely talked unless it was about money, or their country club, or how Jake always aimed higher than most. I laughed it off at first. Maybe they were just formal people. But over time, the little comments started to pile up. "Oh, you're a counselor?" "That's cute," Evelyn said once. Jake could have had his pick of surgeons or lawyers, but heart matters too, I suppose. Or, "You're having your ceremony at that church by the lake?" It's quaint. Every word was like a mosquito bite, small but irritating. And after a while, it started to itch at my piece. Jake noticed, of course. He'd squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "She'll come around, Em. She just needs time." So I gave her time. Way too much of it. I invited her to lunch, to the dress fitting, even to pick flowers. Every time, she'd bail last minute or toss out some half-hearted excuse. And when she did show up, it was always something like, "I just hope you don't wear too much makeup, dear." You have one of those faces that looks better. Simple, I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled and nodded. Because that's what you do when you want peace. You keep quiet and hope people change. When Jake proposed, Evelyn smiled for the pictures but pulled me aside later and said, "Just remember, dear, the Thompson name carries weight. Don't embarrass us." That was the first time I felt my heart physically ache. I wanted to tell Jake, but I didn't want to be that fiancé, the one who starts drama. So I kept it to myself and told my pillow instead. As the wedding planning kicked in, things went from annoying to unbearable. My parents offered to handle the decorations and food. Jake's parents volunteered to manage the venue and guest list. Sounded fair. Until Evelyn started taking over everything. She switched the caterer because, in her words, "Our guests aren't really casserole people." She rearranged the seating chart. Family should sit in front, obviously. And she even called my hairstylist to suggest a more refined look. Translation. She didn't like how I looked. Every time I tried to push back, she'd twist it into guilt. "You're so emotional, dear." Wedding stress, I get it. By then I was exhausted. I kept telling myself it's just one day. After that, I'll never have to deal with this again. But one day can change everything. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in my parents' house to the smell of pancakes and coffee. Mom was humming in the kitchen, flipping bacon with that little hop in her step she always did when she was happy. Dad was shining his shoes, his tie draped around his neck, pretending not to tear up. They looked so proud. So at peace. If I'd known what was coming, I might have stayed home. But love makes you brave. And that morning, I walked straight into the storm, veil, bouquet, and all. When I heard my mother-in-law whisper, "She doesn't deserve him," I swear my stomach dropped right through the floor. That's how my wedding started, not with laughter or love, but with a whisper that hit harder than a slap. The church smelled like roses and candle wax. I could feel the lace of my dress scratching against my shoulders, my dad's hand shaking just slightly as he held my arm. Mom was already tearing up, the good kind, I thought, until I caught the way her smile froze when she saw his family sitting up front. They weren't smiling, not even pretending, just sitting there stiff, like they were at a funeral. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe they were just nervous. Maybe that's how they showed emotion, cold and quiet. After all, this was supposed to be the best day of my life. My name's Emily Carter, and if there's one thing I've learned since that day, it's that people can destroy you with a smile and a whisper. A year before all this, life felt perfect, simple, safe. I worked as a high school counselor, the kind who always kept granola bars in her desk and handed out tough love with a soft voice. I believed that if you worked hard and stayed kind, the universe would treat you right. Then I met Jake Thompson. He wasn't flashy, just this easygoing, grounded guy who made everyone around him feel seen. We met at a community fundraiser. He was volunteering with his company, helping out at the robotics table, and we started talking about music and the best diner coffee in town. It was effortless. Within months, it was like we'd always known each other. My parents loved him instantly. My dad called him a solid man. Mom kept saying, "He's the kind of man who'll keep you safe." I thought I'd hit the jackpot, the kind of love people write songs about. Then came his family. The first time I met Evelyn and Richard Thompson, I realized not everyone was thrilled about their golden boy settling down. Evelyn was the kind of woman who smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Every compliment came with a little poison at the end. Richard barely talked unless it was about money, or their country club, or how Jake always aimed higher than most. I laughed it off at first. Maybe they were just formal people. But over time, the little comments started to pile up. "Oh, you're a counselor? That's cute," Evelyn said once. Jake could have had his pick of surgeons or lawyers, but heart matters too, I suppose. Or, "You're having your ceremony at that church by the lake?" Huh? It's quaint. Every word was like a mosquito bite, small but irritating. And after a while, it started to itch at my peace. Jake noticed, of course. He'd squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "She'll come around, Em. She just needs time." So I gave her time. Way too much of it. I invited her to lunch, to the dress fitting, even to pick flowers. Every time she'd bail last minute or toss out some half-hearted excuse. And when she did show up, it was always something like, "I just hope you don't wear too much makeup, dear. You have one of those faces that looks better." Simple, I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled and nodded. Because that's what you do when you want peace. You keep quiet and hope people change. When Jake proposed, Evelyn smiled for the pictures but pulled me aside later and said, "Just remember, dear, the Thompson name carries weight. Don't embarrass us." That was the first time I felt my heart physically ache. I wanted to tell Jake, but I didn't want to be that fiancé, the one who starts drama. So I kept it to myself and told my pillow instead. As the wedding planning kicked in, things went from annoying to unbearable. My parents offered to handle the decorations and food. Jake's parents volunteered to manage the venue and guest list. Sounded fair, until Evelyn started taking over everything. She switched the caterer because, in her words, "Our guests aren't really casserole people." She rearranged the seating chart. Families should sit in front, obviously. And she even called my hairstylist to suggest a more refined look. Translation: she didn't like how I looked. Every time I tried to push back, she'd twist it into guilt. "You're so emotional, dear." Wedding stress, I get it. By then, I was exhausted. I kept telling myself it's just one day. After that, I'll never have to deal with this again. But one day can change everything. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in my parents' house to the smell of pancakes and coffee. Mom was humming in the kitchen, flipping bacon with that little hop in her step she always did when she was happy. Dad was shining his shoes, his tie draped around his neck, pretending not to tear up. They looked so proud. So, at peace. If I'd known what was coming, I might have stayed home. But love makes you brave. And that morning, I walked straight into the storm, veil, bouquet, and all. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Not the kind you can laugh off with coffee and pancakes. Real chaos. My phone was blowing up. Missed calls, texts, even a few DMs from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Are you okay? Girl, what happened at your wedding? Check Facebook. Fast. My stomach twisted. I clicked the first link someone sent me, and there it was. My wedding photos, posted on a gossip page called Town Talk. There was a picture of me mid-smile, bouquet in hand, and the caption read, "Local counselor marries into money. Not everyone's thrilled about it." The comments were brutal. Strangers debating whether I fit the family vibe, whether I looked out of place. Someone even said I looked like the help. I felt my throat tighten. The post had been shared over 200 times. And guess who the first share came from? Evelyn Thompson. I just sat there shaking. My wedding wasn't even 24 hours old, and it had already turned into a public spectacle. I'd been humiliated, and by my own in-laws. Jake came into the room, half asleep, rubbing his eyes. "Hey, babe, what's wrong?" I shoved the phone at him. "This. Look at this." He frowned, scrolling through the comments. "What the hell? Okay, this is messed up. Who posted this?" "Your mom," I said flatly. "She shared it. She's been running her mouth about me online, Jake. I saw the emojis she left." "You said she'd stop. Calm down. She wouldn't." "Don't tell me to calm down," I snapped. "You think I'm making this up?" He rubbed his face, groaning. "I'll talk to her." "Talk?" I let out a humorless laugh. "Jake, she humiliated me in front of everyone. She rearranged the tables, trashed my parents, and now this? Talking isn't going to fix that." He stood there, quiet, caught between guilt and defensiveness. "She probably didn't mean it like that," he said finally. "You know how she is." That was it, the sentence that flipped a switch in me. You know how she is, like her cruelty was a personality trait, not a choice. "Right," I said, voice trembling. "And you know what I am, Jake? Done." I walked out of the hotel room before he could say another word. That night, I stayed with my parents. My mom didn't ask questions. She just hugged me tight, brushed my hair back, and said softly, "You don't have to pretend anymore, sweetheart. I saw how they treated you." I cried like a kid again. I cried for every moment I'd stayed quiet, every insult I'd swallowed, every time I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. But deep down, under all that pain, something sharper was forming, a kind of steel. I wasn't done being humiliated, though. Because the next morning, as I scrolled through more posts, I found the one that broke everything wide open. It was a video. A guest had recorded a moment from the ceremony, right before I walked down the aisle. You could clearly hear Evelyn's voice saying, "She doesn't deserve him." And then laughter. The video had thousands of views. My wedding, my humiliation, trending in our town like a bad reality show. I felt my chest go numb. I rewatched it over and over until I could barely breathe. My dad saw me staring at the screen and said, "Sweetheart, you can't let them win." But I wasn't thinking about winning anymore. I was thinking about justice. I called Jake that afternoon. He sounded tired, his voice rough like he'd been arguing. I talked to Mom. She swears she didn't mean, Jake, stop." My voice was calm, too calm. "There's a video. She said it. It's everywhere." Silence. Then, "I didn't know people recorded that." "Of course you didn't," I said. "You were too busy defending her." He sighed. "I'm sorry, okay? I'll take it down. It's too late for that. You can't unring a bell." I took a deep breath. "Here's what's gonna happen, Jake. We're gonna redo the reception next weekend. Small, private, just family and close friends. And your parents? They're not invited." He laughed, thinking I was joking. Come on. I'm dead serious. They ruined my day once. I'm not giving them a second chance." He hesitated. "That's not really fair, babe." I bit back a bitter laugh. "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" "My mom cried at her own daughter's wedding because of your mom's behavior." He didn't respond. Just quiet breathing on the other end. "Either you stand with me on this," I said, "or I stand alone. But either way, Evelyn and Richard Thompson are not walking into that hall again." And then I hung up. The days leading up to the redo were tense. Half the town had already heard what happened, and people were picking sides. Some thought I'd overreacted, others quietly told me I was brave, but all I could think about was standing up for myself, not as a bride, but as a woman tired of being disrespected in silence. The morning of the new reception, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. The wide-eyed, soft-spoken girl who wanted everyone to get along was gone. In her place was someone steadier, someone ready. My dad knocked on the door. "You ready, kiddo?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, Dad. This time I'm ready for anything." He chuckled, then added softly, "Let's make this one count." When we walked into the new hall, the crowd clapped. My parents were front and center, smiling proudly. Jake stood near the front, trying to look supportive, but I could tell he was nervous. And then, just as the music began to play, I saw her, Evelyn Thompson, standing at the back of the hall in a glittery dress, clutching her pearls like she owned the place. Behind her was Richard, scowling, and a few of their smug friends. They'd shown up anyway. No invitation, no shame. Kelly leaned in. "You want me to handle it?" I shook my head. "No, this time I'll handle it myself." I stepped forward, picked up the mic meant for the speeches, and smiled. The kind of calm, dangerous smile people wear right before they burn a bridge. The microphone felt heavier than I expected, maybe because of everything it symbolized. Every word I'd swallowed, every insult I'd let slide, every fake smile I'd worn just to keep the peace. All of it led to this moment. The hall went quiet. Forks stopped clinking. Even the band froze mid-tune. Jake looked at me from across the room, his face pale. "Hi, everyone," I started, my voice steady but low. "Thank you all for being here, again. I didn't plan to make a speech tonight, but it turns out some people didn't get the message about what respect means." You could feel the room tense instantly. Heads turned, whispers started. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Evelyn stiffen. Richard muttered something to her, but she stayed put. I took a deep breath and smiled. Calm, controlled, deadly calm. I want to start by saying thank you to my parents, for raising me to know my worth, for teaching me that silence in the face of disrespect isn't grace, it's surrender. Mom's eyes welled up. Dad nodded slightly, jaw tight. Then I turned toward the back of the hall, straight at Evelyn. And I also want to thank the people who taught me what kind of woman I'll never be. A ripple went through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh, damn." Evelyn's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "Emily," she said sharply, trying to sound composed. "This isn't the time." "Oh, it's exactly the time," I said into the mic. "See, last week at my own wedding, I stood there while my mother-in-law whispered that I didn't deserve her son. While she posted about me online. While she moved my parents to the back like they were less than..." I smiled through all of it because I thought being polite made me stronger. But polite women end up broken, and I'm done breaking. The room was dead silent now. Even the air felt frozen. Jake stepped forward, hands raised. "Emily, can we..." "No, Jake, not this time." I looked right at him. "You told me to ignore it, to let it go, to understand how she is. But this..." I gestured around the room. "This isn't a misunderstanding. It's cruelty. And I'm not pretending anymore." Evelyn tried to laugh it off. "Sweetheart, you're making a scene. Let's not ruin another event." "Another event?" I shot back. "You already did that once, remember?" The guests started murmuring. Some of Jake's relatives looked embarrassed. Others looked angry. But I didn't care. I was done playing the nice girl. "You humiliated my family, Evelyn," I said, voice rising just slightly. "You talked about my job, my looks, my background, all because you thought I wasn't good enough for your son. Well, newsflash, your son fell in love with me anyway. And if that bothers you, you're welcome to leave." She blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. You, Richard, and every person who thought this was your show. There's the door." Gasps echoed across the hall. A few of Jake's groomsmen shifted awkwardly. Someone clapped nervously, then stopped when Evelyn turned to glare. Jake's face was pale. "Emily, please..." "Jake," I said softly, "I love you. But I'm not going to stand up here and let your parents ruin another moment that's supposed to be ours." Evelyn's mask cracked then. Her voice went shrill. "You ungrateful little..." "Enough," I said sharply, my voice echoing off the walls. "You don't get to call me names in front of everyone and walk away smiling. You don't get to act classy while tearing people down. You embarrassed me in public, Evelyn, so now I'm giving you the same courtesy. The crowd was dead silent again. Even the servers had stopped moving. I turned toward the security team, 2 guys stationed near the back, hired just in case things got rowdy. Gentlemen, I said calmly, would you please escort the Thompsons out? They weren't on the guest list. It was the calmest chaos I've ever seen. Evelyn sputtered, you wouldn't dare, but the guards were already moving. Richard tried to argue, but one of them simply said, Ma'am, sir, we need you to step outside. People started whispering. Someone actually recorded it. Phones came up, flashes went off. Evelyn turned to Jake. You're just gonna stand there and let her... Jake's voice cracked. Mom, stop, please, just go. That shut her up. For a second, her face softened, like she couldn't believe her son had chosen me over her. Then her jaw clenched and she stormed out, dragging Richard behind her. When the door shut, the room erupted in applause. Actual applause. People clapping, cheering, even whistling. Kelly let out a loud, "That's my girl," while my mom was sobbing into my dad's shoulder. I stood there for a moment, chest heaving, the mic still in my hand. Then I smiled, not a polite one this time, but a real one. The kind that comes after a war you finally win. Later, after things settled, Jake came up to me outside the hall. The night air was cool, and the sound of laughter drifted out from inside. He looked tired, but there was something in his eyes, on pride, maybe, or guilt. Maybe both. I should have stood up for you sooner, he said quietly. Yeah, I said, not angry anymore. Just honest. You should have, he nodded. I get it now. You didn't just want a wedding. You wanted respect. That's all I ever wanted, I said softly. From you, from them, from everyone. He slipped his hand into mine, tentative. Can we start over? For real this time? I looked at him, at the man I still loved, despite everything. Maybe, I said. But this time we build it my way, equal, no one above anyone else. He nodded slowly. Deal. Inside, the music picked back up. People were laughing again, dancing. My mom waved me over, her face glowing like she'd just seen the sun rise after a long storm. Come on, sweetheart, she called. It's your night. I smiled, slipped off my heels, and stepped onto the dance floor barefoot. For the first time since I said I do, I actually felt married. Not to Jake's family. Not to their expectations, but to the life I wanted to create. As I spun under the fairy lights, the crowd clapping around me, I thought about something my dad told me when I was a kid. Sometimes, standing up for yourself isn't about being loud, it's about being clear. That night, I was both. By the next morning, my phone was a war zone. Hundreds of notifications. Missed calls. DMs from random people I didn't even know. At first, I thought maybe something bad had happened. Then I saw the first TikTok clip. Someone had posted a video titled, Bride Kicks Out In-Laws Mid-Reception. And yeah, that bride was me. The clip had over 3 million views overnight. Every second of my meltdown. Or, well, my moment of clarity was online now. The mic drop. The crowd cheering. Evelyn's stunned face as she was escorted out. Someone had even slowed it down with dramatic music like it was a movie scene. The comments section? A full-blown courtroom. Half the people were cheering me on. Finally, a bride with a backbone. She stood up for herself and her family. Queen behavior. I felt that you're not on the guest list line in my soul. The other half. Imagine humiliating your husband's family like that. Red flag city. She'll be divorced before the honeymoon ends. And right there, in the middle of it all, was me, scrolling through it with coffee in hand. Somewhere between proud and terrified. Kelly called first. Girl, you're trending on Twitter. You're like the Beyoncé of brides right now. Oh, great, I groaned. That's exactly what I wanted. To be a meme. Relax, she laughed. You looked amazing. And honestly, you said what every daughter-in-law's been dying to say since the dawn of time. But not everyone was laughing. By noon, Evelyn's lawyer had called Jake. Yeah, her lawyer, apparently. She was deeply humiliated by the public defamation and was considering taking legal action, which, in normal English, means she was pissed that everyone online was calling her a toxic mill. Jake just rubbed his forehead. She's saying you did this for attention, I blinked. Right. Because I planned for someone to film me losing my mind at our reception? He sighed. I'm not defending her. She's getting roasted online. Her job called. Her church group found the video. She's Kinda become the internet's villain of the week. Good, I said flatly. Maybe next time she'll think before calling someone trash at their own wedding. Jake looked torn. I know she was wrong, I do. But she's still my mom. I softened a little. And you're still my husband. But we can't fix this if you keep letting her treat me like I don't matter. He nodded, slow and quiet. You're right, I'm trying. 2 days later, reporters actually showed up at our house. Like full-on local news trucks in our driveway. Emily Harper. One woman called, holding a mic. Can we get a statement about the viral wedding video? Kelly texted me, girl, you need PR representation now. Meanwhile, Evelyn posted a Facebook rant titled, The Truth About What Really Happened at My Son's Wedding. She claimed I'd manipulated Jake, that my family was low class, and that I'd staged the whole thing for clout. Except, the internet had receipts. Someone posted screenshots of her old posts, the snarky captions, the shade about me being not his type. It backfired hard. Within hours, her post had more angry reacts than likes, and people were commenting stuff like, Lady, take the L. We saw the video. You were rude, she just snapped. Apologize and move on, you're embarrassing yourself. It was brutal, but also kind of poetic. Later that week, Jake and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. Things were quiet for once. No cameras, no drama, just crickets and the faint hum of summer. He reached over and took my hand. You know, I didn't realize how much you'd been holding in. I looked at him, half smiling. Guess I finally ran out of grace. He chuckled softly. The internet thinks you're a legend. Yeah, well, I said, leaning back. Legends don't get peace and quiet. He squeezed my hand. We'll get there. For the first time in a while, I believed him. Then, just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From an unknown number. I opened it and froze. It was a photo of Evelyn sitting in her living room with a smug little smile. And underneath it, one single line. You think this is over? You just started a war. My stomach dropped. Because for all the viral fame and online sympathy, I knew one thing for sure. Evelyn Thompson wasn't done. At first I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe the text wasn't even from Evelyn. Maybe it was some troll. But then, the next morning I found out she'd gone nuclear. Jake woke me up with his phone in hand, eyes wide. You need to see this. He showed me a Facebook group called Protecting Our Sons from Toxic Women. Guess who the admin was? Yep, Evelyn Thompson. She'd posted my full name, tagged photos from our wedding, and wrote this dramatic essay about how I destroyed her son's family for fame. Within hours, there were hundreds of comments from strangers, mostly older women, calling me a manipulator, a gold digger, and even a psychopath. Someone had even dug up my LinkedIn profile and started commenting under my company's posts. By noon, HR had called. Emily, we've had some concerning activity on our company page, my boss said carefully. It's probably nothing, but maybe stay off social media for a while? My chest felt tight. Of course, I said, trying not to sound like I was shaking. But inside, I was furious. This woman was trying to destroy me. Jake drove straight to his parents' house that evening. I didn't go. I was too angry to trust myself. He came home an hour later, face pale and jaw tight. She won't stop, he said quietly. She thinks she's defending her reputation. Dad tried to calm her down, but she's obsessed with this. What did you say to her? I asked. That she needs to take everything down before she gets sued for harassment, he said. She laughed. Said, I've got nothing to lose. I just stared at him. She's insane, he rubbed his eyes. Yeah, but she's my mom. And now she's not just hurting you, she's hurting us. That night, I sat at my desk scrolling through the hate comments. It was like watching strangers rewrite my life. Every kind act, every private pain, twisted into a weapon. Then I saw one comment that stopped me cold. My sister was at that wedding. Said the bride looked drunk and aggressive. Drunk? I hadn't had a single drink that night. Then another. She pushed the groom's mother first. That's why security came. None of that happened. It was like watching reality dissolve. But that's when I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. The next morning, I went live. No makeup, no filter, just me sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and a quiet fury that even surprised me. Hi, everyone. I began softly. You've probably seen the video. You've probably heard a lot of versions of what happened at my wedding. I just want to tell you mine, and I told it. Calmly. Honestly. The way I would tell it to a friend. I described how Evelyn had treated my parents, how I'd tried to keep peace, how everything just snapped that day. I didn't insult her, didn't shout, I just told the truth. By the time I ended the live, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from release. Within hours, my DMs were flooded. Not with hate, but with support. Women writing, "You're brave for standing up for yourself. I went through the same thing with my mail. Thank you for saying what we all wish we could." And then one message from an unexpected sender. It was from Evelyn's husband. "Emily, I'm sorry for what my wife has done. She's been struggling with control for years. I tried to talk her down, but she won't listen. Please don't lose faith in Jake. He's a good man. She doesn't represent us." I sat there staring at that message for a long time, tears stinging my eyes. Because as much as I hated Evelyn, part of me just felt sad. Sad that someone could love control more than family. But the peace didn't last. A week later, I got another call, this time from a producer at a talk show. They wanted me and Evelyn to appear together. "Think of it," the producer said. "A mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law showdown, the internet would go wild." I almost laughed. "You mean you want us to fight on live TV? Or reconcile," she said hopefully. I hung up. There was no reconciling with someone who saw your humiliation as entertainment. Still, it got me thinking. Maybe it was time for me to control the narrative. That's when I started my own page, Wedding Justice Stories. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. I started sharing short stories about women standing up for themselves. Some my own, some submitted anonymously. Within a month, the page had 100,000 followers. People weren't just listening. They were healing. Together, Jake helped me edit the videos, and slowly we found laughter again. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but we were learning to protect our peace, even from family. Then one morning, as I scrolled through my notifications, I saw a comment that made me freeze. It was from an anonymous account, just 4 words. "She's still watching you." No profile picture. No posts. Just that. And right as I read it, I heard a car pull up outside. Jake looked out the window. His face went pale. "Emily." "It's my mom." The sound of her car door slamming felt like thunder. I froze halfway down the stairs, heart pounding in my chest. Through the blinds, I could see her, Evelyn, standing in our driveway like she owned the place. Hair perfectly curled, heels clicking on the pavement, a smug smile plastered across her face. Jake muttered, "What the hell is she doing here?" "I told you she wasn't done," I said under my breath. He sighed, rubbed his temples, then squared his shoulders. "I'll handle it." But before he could step outside, she knocked, no, pounded, on the door. 3 sharp knocks that made the picture frames rattle. I opened it before he could stop me. There she was, dressed in beige slacks and a silk blouse like she was coming to brunch, not to war. "Evelyn," I said coolly, "you're trespassing." Her smile didn't budge. "Oh, sweetheart, don't be dramatic. I came to talk." Jake stepped up beside me. "Mom, you're not supposed to be here." "I know," she said sweetly, eyes flicking to me, "but I couldn't sit back and let her destroy our family name." I folded my arms. "You mean the name that's already trending for being toxic?" Her expression hardened. "You humiliated me in front of everyone we know. You made me a villain on the internet." "I didn't make you anything," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." She stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "You think you've won, don't you? You think all those people online love you? They'll move on to the next viral story tomorrow. But family?" She tapped her chest. "Family lasts forever." Jake cut in. "Mom, enough. This obsession isn't helping anyone." Evelyn turned on him. "Obsession? You're my son. You let that woman—" She jabbed a manicured finger toward me. "Turn you against your own mother." I could see Jake shaking with frustration. "You did that yourself when you started a hate campaign against my wife." For the first time, Evelyn's voice cracked. I raised you better than this. He looked at her, eyes steady. Then act like the mother who raised me better. Silence. Just the sound of wind rustling the trees outside. She blinked rapidly, as if holding back tears, but the anger in her eyes didn't fade. Finally, she said, "You'll regret this one day, both of you." Then she turned and walked away, not fast, not angry, just slow and deliberate, like she was already planning her next move. Her car door slammed, and the sound of her tires crunching down the gravel driveway echoed long after she was gone. Jake exhaled shakily. I think that's it. I think she's done. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I knew Evelyn Thompson wasn't the kind of woman who let go. Weeks passed. The internet slowly moved on. My page kept growing. I even got invited to speak on a podcast about boundaries and toxic in-laws. People sent messages saying my story gave them courage to stand up for themselves, but behind all that noise, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Once I came home from work and found a bouquet of lilies on our porch. No note. Jake swore he didn't send them. My mom didn't either. Another time I noticed a silver sedan parked across the street. Same spot, 3 days in a row. When I finally walked over to check, it was gone. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was paranoid. Then one night, Jake came home late from work, face pale, hands trembling slightly. He said, voice low. You're not going to believe this. He handed me an envelope. No address, no return name, just my first name written in thick black ink. Inside was a printed photo. It was me, standing outside the coffee shop near my office, smiling, holding a latte, and underneath, in sharp red marker, "See you soon, sweetheart." I sat down slowly, my whole body cold. Jake called the cops. Right away, but they said unless there was a direct threat or evidence, there wasn't much they could do. I stared at that photo for a long time, the words burning into my brain. It wasn't just about humiliation anymore. Evelyn wasn't trying to protect her reputation. She was trying to erase me. For the first time since that wedding, I felt real fear. Not the kind that makes you cry, the kind that makes you still, quiet, alert, the kind that whispers, "You're not safe." Jake didn't sleep that night. He just sat on the couch staring at that photo like it was going to start talking. I could tell he was torn between disbelief and rage. His mom had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. "She's losing it," he said finally, his voice hoarse. "I'm calling Dad in the morning. This has to stop, Jake." I started but stopped. What was I supposed to say? Hey, maybe don't confront the woman who might be stalking me? There were no right words for this. By morning, we had a plan. We filed a police report, sent them copies of the letters, and even set up a security camera by our porch. I changed my social media privacy settings, deleted old photos, and made sure my coworkers knew not to share my schedule online. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. Then Jake's dad called. "Son, your mom's gone off the deep end," he said, voice heavy. "She's been showing up at people's houses, telling neighbors you two are dangerous. She even told Pastor Miller you were brainwashed by your wife." Jake rubbed his temples. "Dad, you've got to stop her. I've tried. She doesn't listen to anyone anymore. She's not herself." A few nights later, I got home late from work. Jake was on shift at the fire station, so the house was dark and still. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and went to grab a drink from the fridge. That's when I noticed it. The faint smell of her perfume, that floral, powdery scent she wore at the wedding. The one that clung to her clothes and her hugs. I froze. "Jake?" I called softly. No answer. I grabbed the baseball bat we kept by the door and walked slowly toward the hallway. My heart was thudding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The back door was unlocked. I know I locked it that morning. I always did. I swung it open and stepped outside, bat raised, but the yard was empty. Only the faint sound of crickets and wind. Then I saw it. A single photo on the porch step. Same size as before. Printed on glossy paper. It was me again, but this time asleep. In our bed, and underneath it, written in the same red ink, "I told you this wasn't over." The police took it seriously after that. They dusted for prints, checked the footage, but whoever it was, they were careful. The camera caught nothing but the faint shape of a car pulling away. Jake was furious. I could see the guilt eating at him. "I should have stopped her before it got to this," he said. "I should have—" "You couldn't have known," I whispered. "This isn't your fault." But deep down, I wasn't sure either of us believed that. Then came the breaking point. 1 week later, my boss called me into her office. She looked uneasy, like she didn't know where to start. "Emily, I hate to do this, but we received a formal complaint." "A complaint? About what?" She sighed. "About you. Someone sent an email claiming you were violent, that you attacked your husband's mother, that you've been harassing her online." I blinked. "You're kidding," she shook her head. It was detailed. Attached screenshots, photos, even fake witness statements. "I can tell it's garbage, but HR has to investigate." My stomach dropped. "Who sent it?" Her voice softened. The name on the email was Evelyn Thompson. That was it. The final straw. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was done. That night, I sat down with Jake, took his hand, and said, "We're getting a restraining order." He didn't even argue. "Whatever it takes." It took weeks of paperwork, affidavits, police reports, but eventually the judge granted it. Evelyn was officially banned from contacting us, showing up at our home, or posting about us online. When she was served the papers, she reportedly screamed in the courthouse lobby. But we didn't see her. Didn't hear from her. For the first time in months. Silence. Until one afternoon, a letter came in the mail. No return address, no handwriting. Just typed words, "You took my son from me, but I forgive you. Because soon you'll understand what real loss feels like." Jake called the cops again, but there was no evidence linking it to her. They said it could have been anyone. Still, the night after that letter, Evelyn's husband called. "She's gone," he said. Packed her things, left a note, disappeared. Jake asked what the note said. There was a long pause. Then his father whispered, "She said she was going to make things right." We searched, filed reports, checked hotels, called friends, nothing. Days turned into weeks, then months. And just when I started to believe maybe she really was gone, a package arrived on our doorstep. Inside was a small white box and a USB drive. Jake plugged it into his laptop. Hands trembling, the screen flickered on, and there she was, Evelyn, sitting in a dimly lit room, eyes swollen, voice shaking. "You wanted the world to hate me," she said softly. "Well, you got your wish. But I'm not the villain here. I just wanted my family back." Then she smiled, that same eerie smile from the text she'd sent months ago. "Tell me, Emily, was it worth it?" The video ended, no location, no clues. Just her voice echoing in the room. Jake just sat there staring at the laptop screen like if he blinked, she'd disappear again. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the computer fan and the sound of his breathing, shallow and uneven. I finally broke the silence. "How old is that video?" He scrolled through the file info. 2 days ago. My skin went cold. "So, she's alive." "Yeah," he said, voice low. "And she wants us to know it." He stood up suddenly, pacing. "We need to give this to the cops. Right now." At the police station, the detective who'd been handling our case leaned back in his chair and watched the video twice. Then he rubbed his jaw. "Looks recent," he said. "But there's no way to tell where it was filmed. No identifiable background, no metadata. Looks like she scrubbed everything." Jake ran a hand through his hair. "She's taunting us. She wants to scare us." The detective nodded. "That's what it looks like. But honestly, this is good. It means she's alive, which means she's making mistakes. People like her always do." We left with no real answers, just a strange sense of unfinished business hanging in the air. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Just another Evelyn mind game. But I was wrong. It was the beginning of the end. 2 weeks later, Jake's dad called again. "She showed up," he said quietly. "At church. During service." My heart skipped. "What?" She walked right in, sat in the front row like nothing happened. Pastor Miller nearly fainted. She told everyone she'd been reflecting and that she forgave all of us. Jake and I exchanged a look. "Forgave us?" I repeated. "She's the one who—" "I know," his dad said quickly. "But there's more. She's different. Calm, cold. It's like she's not even the same person." We didn't see her again for a month. But then one afternoon, she called Jake out of nowhere. The call came through while he was doing yard work. I watched him freeze when he saw her name on the screen. He answered anyway. Mom? I could hear her voice through the speaker, smooth, eerie, almost rehearsed. Hi, honey. I just wanted to say, I'm moving away. I found a place up north, somewhere peaceful. Jake frowned. Okay, why are you telling me this? Because I don't want you to worry, she said. I'm letting go. Of everything. Then she hung up, just like that. No threats, no guilt trips. Just calm. Too calm. Jake stared at the phone for a long time. You think she means it? I shrugged. When has your mom ever meant peace? The next morning, we woke up to the sound of knocking again. But this time it wasn't her. It was the police. The detective looked grim. Mr. and Mrs. Harper. We found a vehicle registered to Evelyn Thompson. It was abandoned near a lake 2 hours north. Jake's face went white. Was she? He shook his head. No sign of her. Just her purse. And a note. He handed Jake a copy. I read it over his shoulder. I finally understand what it's like to lose everything. I hope you never do. No signature. No date. The news spread fast. Her church held a vigil. The Facebook group she'd started vanished overnight. And for a while, the internet treated her like a ghost. A tragic woman broken by her own bitterness. Jake blamed himself. I should have called her back. I should have tried. I stopped him. No, Jake, you tried for years. She made her choices. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe it. Months passed. We moved to a smaller town, changed numbers, tried to rebuild. Life slowly started to feel normal again. Dinners on the porch, laughter in the kitchen, no shadows lurking in our windows. Then, one fall evening, I got a notification on my phone, a new video upload on an old account I'd long forgotten, the one from our wedding. The title, The Truth About What Happened That Day, from the bride herself. I frowned. Jake, did you? He shook his head. No, I clicked it. The video opened with footage from our wedding, the exact same viral clip from that day, but edited differently. Slowed down. Cropped close on my face as I spoke into the mic. Then, halfway through, the screen glitched, and there she was, Evelyn, sitting in front of a window, night behind her. Eyes calm, smile faint. People think they know what happened. But stories have two sides. Emily had hers. This is mine. The video ended. No timestamps. No explanation. Just that. The detective said the upload came from an IP address traced to another state. But it was a public Wi-Fi network. No way to find who did it. Jake wanted to delete it. I said no. Maybe I was crazy, but some part of me wanted the world to see it. To know that even after everything, her ghost still lingered, not haunting me, but warning me. Because that's what this story really was. Not just about revenge or justice or humiliation. It was about control. About what happens when someone loves the idea of family more than the people in it. And sometimes, the scariest ghosts are the ones still breathing. You know, sometimes family isn't blood. It's the people who let you breathe without fear. Emily did everything right. She loved, forgave, tried to build peace. But some folks don't want peace. They want control. And when they lose it, they'll burn the whole world just to feel powerful again. Evelyn wasn't just a mother-in-law. She was a storm in human form, and sometimes storms don't disappear. They just move on, waiting to see who they'll hit next, but you can't live your life waiting for the next thunderclap. You stand tall, rebuild what's yours, and protect your peace, even if it means walking away from the people who raised you. Tell me, sweetheart. Have you ever had to cut off family to save yourself? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone. And if Emily's story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Your support keeps these voices alive.